Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a journey, a data-driven journey actually, all the way up the global income ladder. We're going to start with just a couple of dollars a day and go all the way to the world of billionaires. And I'm willing to bet that the reality of global wealth and poverty, it's really going to surprise you.
All right, let's dive right in with a question to get us started. Just think about it for a second. Where do most people on this planet live? Are they in low-income, middle-income, or high-income countries? Go on, take a guess, lock in that answer. And okay, here's the second one for you. Since the year 2000, what's happened to global wealth inequality? Has that gap between the richest and the poorest people gotten bigger, smaller, or has it just kind of stayed the same? Really think about that one, because here's a fun fact. Almost nobody, we're talking fewer than 2% of people, gets both of these questions right. So, to get to the answers, we've got to start our climb, and we're starting right at the very bottom of the world's economic ladder. We're going to work our way up, one step at a time. Okay, so our journey starts in a place called Burundi. It's one of the planet's lowest income countries, and the median daily wage there is just $1.80. Think about that, $1.80 a day. But what does a number like that actually mean for how someone lives their life? Well, that number, it translates to a life that's almost entirely rural. You're talking about homes often made from mud bricks, there's no electricity, so fire isn't just for warmth, it's your light, it's how you cook. And the tough realities are, well, they're really tough. Child mortality is tragically high, and families are large, on average 5 children per woman, and they mostly rely on farming, just what they need to survive. Okay, let's climb up to the next rung on the ladder. This takes us to places like Bangladesh. Here, the median daily wage is $4.78. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it's more than double what we saw in Burundi. And that difference, that's a huge leap in living standards. And check this out, because this comparison really illustrates a critical point about development. Today, in Bangladesh, something like 99% of households have electricity. Now, let's rewind the clock. Look at Portugal, a high-income European country, back in 1970. You know how many homes had power then? Just 64%. So this whole idea that poor countries are just stuck being poor forever, the data just completely blows that out of the water. And all of this brings us back to our first question. Remember, where does most of the world live? Well, it's not in low-income countries. That's only about 9% of everyone. The answer is B. The vast majority of humanity, a truly staggering 75%, now lives in middle-income countries. Billions of people, I mean billions, have climbed out of extreme poverty in just a single generation. It's an incredible story. Okay, so what happens next? Let's see how this picture builds as we cross the halfway point for the world's population. We are now officially entering the richer half of humanity. And let me tell you, this is where life starts to change, and fast. So as we keep climbing up into countries like Indonesia or Brazil, we start to see this really consistent pattern of development. First, people move from rural areas into cities. Then, as they get wealthier, families tend to have fewer children. And get this, while hunger can still be a problem, new health issues like obesity actually become more common because diets are changing so much. And all this stuff many of us just take for granted, motorbikes, cars, computers, they become everyday items. All right, now we're getting way up there. We're reaching the high-income countries. Let's use Spain as our example. Here, the median daily income is $41. Just pause on that. That is more than 20 times the income we saw back in Burundi. It's a different world. And life here isn't just about what you can buy. It's about having access to things like reliable healthcare and social security. But it also comes with a kind of freedom that's honestly unimaginable for most people on the planet. I mean, just look at the passport. A Spanish citizen can travel to 189 countries without needing a visa. That's a privilege, and it's tied directly to how wealthy their home country is. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Even though they're incredibly wealthy compared to the rest of the world, a lot of people inside these high-income countries feel, well, they feel stuck, economically stuck, like they're being left behind. And this brings us to a really fascinating paradox right at the heart of this whole story. There's an economist, Branko Milanovic, who just nailed this feeling. He found that if you look at the people around the 75th percentile of global income, and that includes a huge chunk of the middle class in Western countries, their income growth over 2 decades was, well, pretty much zero. Nothing. This chart here is a simple version of his famous elephant curve. And man, the story it tells is crystal clear. So who are the big winners of globalization?
You've got the emerging middle class in Asia. Their income shot way up. And you've got the global top 1%. They also made out like bandits. But look at that dip right in the middle. Who's that? That's the Western middle class. Their income just flatlined. They got squeezed.
So, okay, to solve this whole puzzle, we have to get our heads around two totally different kinds of inequality. First, you've got inequality within a country, right? The gap between the rich and poor citizens in, say, Germany. Then you've got inequality between countries. That's the gap between the average person in Germany and the average person in Bangladesh, two separate things.
And when we look at that first type, inequality inside countries, the numbers are pretty stark. In a lot of places, it's been going up. In the United States, the top 10% owns 71% of all the wealth. And look at South Africa. It's an unbelievable 86%. So yeah, this trend is absolutely real. And it's a massive challenge politically and economically.
So we're left with these two stories that seem to completely contradict each other, right? A squeezed middle class in rich countries, but at the same time, billions of people rising up in poorer ones. So with all that in mind, it is finally time to answer that second question.
So has global inequality gone up since 2000? I mean, given everything we just talked about, the middle class in the West not getting ahead, the super rich getting way richer, the answer seems obvious, doesn't it? It has to have gone up. But this is where our own experience, what we see around us, can actually mislead us. Because when you look at the global data, it tells a completely different story. The surprising answer is no. Since the year 2000, global wealth inequality has actually decreased. Wait, what? How is that even possible? Well, it's because that other kind of inequality, the gap between countries, has been shrinking dramatically. If you looked at the world in 1990, it was basically split into two camps, a small club of rich countries and a whole lot of poor ones. But since then, that gap has been closing as billions of people, especially in Asia, started to rapidly climb out of poverty.
So here's the bottom line. The story of developing countries catching up to richer ones, that story is so massive, so powerful, that it has actually outweighed the very real problem of inequality rising within rich countries. This incredible phenomenon is called the Great Convergence, and it means that the world as a whole is actually a more equal place than it was 20 years ago.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with a final question. The data shows a world where billions are escaping poverty, where the gap between entire nations is closing, even though we know serious challenges are still out there. So, if the data tells this powerful story of progress, why do so many of us believe a different story, a more pessimistic one? It's definitely something to think about.